Hello everyone, this is Alice Spectral and welcome back to the Land of Empires. And I want to push out a quick video, which will be part 2 of my damage formula guide. Now I previously made part 1 of this video where I talked about the effect of attack percent, ferocity percent, defense percent, HP percent, which makes up the very basic stats. I also talked about the effect of the unit count that you use. So for example, how many infantry you use, how many cavalry you use, how many archers you use, and how that affects the damage that the unit can deal, as well as the effect of the total army size between you and your opponent. Finally, I mentioned the effect of the glorious tiers from glorious 1 to 5, as well as from glorious 6 to 10, and also the effect of troop tiers from T2 troops all the way to T11 troops. And if you are interested in any of that information, please refer to part 1 of this guide. In part 2, I mostly want to focus on the newly discovered effects of formations as well as tier 12. I know a lot of people are interested in the power impact of tier 12 troops. And when I made my tier 12 guide video, I made quite a few assumptions because back then we did not actually have much information on the power scaling of the later T12 subtiers. Now, for this video, I want to cover all of that information as well as the effect of formation stats. Now, formation stats are also attack, ferocity, defense, and HP, and they show up as your kind of basic stats. So if you go to your stat page and go look at PvP reports, they will show up under your basic attack, basic ferocity, basic defense, and basic HP. And we discovered that formation stats work actually very similar to your basic stats, except they are a separate multiplier. And this means that growing your formation stats will boost your power separately as a multiplier towards your total stats. So, but instead of being the total stat itself, the effect of formation stats is 5 times weaker than normal stats. So we can see that the stat percent itself is divided by 5. Meaning, for example, if you go from 0% formation attack to 100% formation attack, instead of gaining double the attack. So for example, if your attack percent is 0% and then you increase that to 100%, what would happen is that your attack damage would double. But for formation stats, if you increase your formation attack from 0% to 100%, then your damage will be multiplied by 100 divided by 5 plus 100. Of course, divided by 100 since it's measuring in percentages. It will increase by 1.2 instead of 2. So formation stats are very powerful because they are a separate multiplier. However, the effect itself is only 1/5 of your regular stats. However, that does not mean formation stats are not impactful because once again, they are a separate multiplier. So the higher formation stats, the higher the scaling of the formation effect. So to give another example, if you have 500% formation stats, for example, going from 0% to 500%, your damage will be multiplied by 2. So 500% divided by 5 plus 100 means that your damage will be multiplied by 2. If you increase your formation attack and formation ferocity both from 0% to 500%, then your damage will be multiplied by 4 because 2 times 2 equals 4. Now, if you increase your formation attack percent from 500% to 1,000%, if we ever get to that point, then your damage will be increased by 3 divided by 2. So 3, 2. So 1.5. Anyways, so that is the effect of formation stats. They are a separate multiplier and they are fairly impactful as you grow the stat itself. Obviously, it is not impactful as the basic stats as you grow them early on. So for example, if you have 100% attack, that will have much more, someone who has 200% attack will have much greater impact on their combat performance than if they had 100% extra formation stats, for example. So that is the primary difference in the early game. Anyways, moving on to the effect of tier 12, we discovered that the upgrade itself. So this is not covering anything related to stat gains you gain from T12 research. In T12 research, you gain not only regular stat percentages, but also basic stat percentages, so akin to formation stats. This is only focusing on the tier upgrades themselves. And we learned that upgrading from tier 11 to tier 12.1, your troops will gain 10% extra damage dealt and 10% lower damage taken. Now, I don't want to call it 10% lower damage taken directly, rather than a 1.1 multiplier in reduced damage taken. Now, the difference from 12.1 to 12.4 is that instead of continuously scaling at 1.1 per subtier, you only scale at 1.05, meaning that between tiers 12.2 and 12.4, you only get 5% extra damage taken and 1.05 5% extra damage dealt and 1.05 reduced damage taken. And finally, at tier 12.5, so the last upgrade of tier 12, we once again go back to that 1.1 multiplier. And this generally means, in my opinion, that upgrading really past tier 12.3 is not that cost efficient. Because if we look at the cost of tier 12.4, and maxing tier 12.4 as well as tier 12.5 cost a tremendous amount of refined sands. So based on this discovery that you do not really scale too well past tier 12.1, I would suggest stopping after tier 12.3. So do a few additional upgrades within the tier 12.4 branch, because the early upgrades, of course, are very cheap. And then work on your other troop types. For example, stop at tier 12.3 infantry, work a little bit on the tier 12.4 nodes, and then upgrade your archer to tier 12.2 as well as cavalry to tier 12.2 before going back to work on the infantry. So based on this knowledge, this is what I would suggest in terms of how to progress in T12 research and upgrades. So I hope everyone enjoyed this video. If we find out additional components of this damage formula, then I will make part 3 of this video guides. But for now, these are the main components of the damage formula main components of what affects your damage dealt and damage taken in combat outside of the battle disorder. And I need to mention that it is emphasized that it is outside of the battle disorder, because I have no idea what goes on in the battle disorder. I have no idea how combat works in the battle disorder. All I know is that, at least for now, is that there are soft counters towards pretty much every composition. And eventually, I hope to make a kind of a guide video to all the different counters and composition variation that people use in Season 7 within the Battle Disorder. So please look forward to that video. But for now, I hope everyone enjoyed part 2 of my damage formula guide, and I will see everyone in my next video.